Right now, we'd like to bring on a young man who believes in doing things his own way. And based on the way he kind of get next to all of the folks who've seen him work, his way has got to be pretty hip. So let's lay some noise.
They sit down middle.
All right. So today was the first day of the 2020 NFL season. 24 hours before the first day of the 2020 season, the biggest news in NFL, possibly close to some of the biggest news in NFL history. We had one of the greatest players of all time, constantly referred to as one of the greatest players of all time, Tom Brady, 6-time world champion, decided he was going to leave his home team, the team that he's been with for 20 years, the New England Patriots. The only thing that was bigger than that was the fact that he decided to make the choice to come to one of the most unsuccessful NFL franchises in history, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's all well and good. That's all cool that he did so, which is all fun. Everybody in Tampa loved it. Big issue that we had here in Tampa was a huge ripple effect. One of the big issues we had here in Tampa was the feedback, as well as the hype that we got from the Tampa Bay fandom. Like everybody had a big reaction one way or another. It was either a huge overreaction or everybody who was just underselling the move and they hated it. Everybody had an opinion. But it all had a ripple effect through a whole lot of stuff. We're going to touch on a few of those pieces tonight. Joining me tonight, two guys who everybody, if you follow the BUCS at any point over the last 10 years or so, everybody should know these two guys. One guy led one of the most popular podcasts in the last 5 years. Innovative, always on top of it, big on credibility, did his homework, didn't fall in line with the rest of the crowd, didn't talk a whole lot of foolishness, didn't bring up a whole lot of hype, didn't talk crazy about players, up or down. Chris Fisher. Chris Fisher is one of the best personalities, either podcast or Twitter followers or any social media that was out there. He's joining me tonight. You'll hear from him in just a little while. Before we get to Chris, there's another young man. I call him a young man, cool as cap. I call him a young man. I got to call him a young man. The originator, the original podcast of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody wants to follow his footsteps. Everybody's always wanted to do what he and the organization that he's been attached to has done. Whether it's been the podcast, whether it's been a charity event, or the only Hall of Fame tailgate in Central Florida, What the Buck. Derek Fournier is also joining us tonight to talk BUCS, to talk fandom, to talk change. This, for me, is one of the biggest honors that I could have as a fan. It's a big deal, and a lot of people should go ahead and recognize it if you don't already do so. Whether you're a new fan who joined in the last week or so, or you've been a BUCS fan since the beginning, you either know these two young men, again, young man, got to call them, or you've heard about them. In the time of craziness that we have in the BUCS franchise right now, Tampa Bay needs to hear the voices of these two individuals. Starting off tonight, we're going to talk about the current state of the BUCS. A whole lot of changes. We just went through a huge 5-year time span in which the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were looking to make a big impression upon the league, and take a big step from being mediocre to being a leader in the NFC South and the NFC. That didn't happen. We've had 2 coaching changes, 1 franchise quarterback hopeful. Things have not panned out. In comes Tom Brady. In comes the paranoia. In comes the hysteria. Just today we just had like a huge deal with bandwagon fans, real fans, just a whole lot of craziness. So again, we're going to open the floor. We're going to talk to the 2 guys. Chris, thank you for joining me tonight. Also, Derek, I want to thank you for joining me tonight.
I don't know how to follow that intro. This is like ridiculous. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it, man. Derek was doing podcasts before 750,000 other people were doing podcasts. Now everyone has a podcast, and I got into the podcast game and I was like, I'd love talking about the Buccaneers, so that's what I'm going to do from a podcast standpoint. But then everyone has a podcast now. So right. If you go to my Twitter, you see the big banner that says retired. But when I heard that Derek was coming on to this and you were hosting it, Robert, it was an opportunity. I said, let's do it, man. Let's there's nothing else going on. We're all locked in our homes, so why not?
Yeah, well, I greatly appreciate you. I mean, again, I'm a novice to this. You cats just kind of saw the technical foolishness we were just dealing with.
It's all good, man. How many? This is your second episode?
Ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely. Second episode.
That's all right. Downloads are going to be through the roof.
Thanks to you guys, and especially
because of Derek, not because of me. Because I'm a J Brown.
Especially thanks to Derek Fournier, man. Thank you again for joining us, Derek Fournier. How you feeling tonight?
Well, after that intro, I have to have someone else actually answer these questions. You're not allowed to speak to me directly, clearly, because I'm way more important than I thought coming into this. But no, I appreciate the heavy-handed praise. Very fortunate ages ago. Some of you guys know the story. My wife got annoyed with me talking to her about stuff she didn't care about and said, hey, you should talk to the internet about it because that's not me, and that makes it better. And so I did, and I happened to run into some like-minded crazy individuals that turned into a group of crazies that we call the What the Buck crew, and we grew over 13, 14, 15 years, and we had a great run and continue to, right? It's just, like Chris said, he's retired. At some point, you let other people take over, and folks like yourself, and there's some other good ones out there. Listen, more voices are good. I think that it's a cycle. People got to find their own spot. I know Chris posted the other night about if you're going to do a podcast, find something unique, find an angle. Don't do what everyone else does. And I think that that's a really sage advice. But the one thing I will say is social media in sports helped me meet people I never would have met, from players to their families to people in the organization to amazing people next door who I otherwise would have had nothing in common with. I remember Cheryl, who goes by Spent, who still runs our charitable organization, which she founded, What the Buck Really Matters, said, if it weren't for the Bucks, most of us would never have any reason to talk to one another. That doesn't mean that we were rude or didn't like one another, but our universes never would have intersected. And so sports can be an incredible unifying factor, and I think too often, fueled by social media's immediacy effect, we let it be a galvanizing factor for negative as opposed to a rallying factor for positive. And I know that makes me sound like the old Pollyanna clown on the podcast, because I certainly was part of the problem early, right? Because negativity sells, negativity drives clicks, animosity drives polarization, and polarization drives tribe mentality. But to be honest, guys, life's just too fucking short. So my tone's going to be a little different tonight. Robert, you and I have had the opportunity to know each other for a long time. I'm privileged to call you a friend. But thanks for having me on. It's nice to be back and to be with folks who I respect immensely, and you and Chris.
Yeah, well, the pleasure's all mine, man. And honestly, the pleasure is to that of the fans. There's a lot of people who've been asking to hear your voice, and they relish. I mean, they just love to hear your voice, both of you guys. I mean, they honestly respect you guys, and they ask for you to come back more than they ask to hear new episodes of a lot of other people out there, possibly mine included.
Well, I mean, I'm probably the loudest when I ask for, they're to me, and like Derek said, there's a lot of good podcasts out there and folks who are trying and folks who are hustling. I just tended to gravitate towards Derek's audio, based on what I thought was always a level-headed approach to the way that he produced his content. And I'm probably the loudest when I said I wish he was there, but I respect the fact and the decision of stepping away. And honestly, over the last year and a half, that was the void that I was having, and it was driving me crazy, watching some of the things that were happening on the field. And I was like, man, I just don't have, there's not that voice that's out there anymore to just bring a little bit of sanity back to the fan base. But and then not to harp on that, but I'm probably one of the loudest when it comes to, I really miss What the Buck, but I'm not pushing anything on Derek, and I'm not kissing his ass anymore, but it was something special that the BUCS community had, especially from a podcast standpoint, to have that, take a breath, calm down, and let's have a level-headed conversation.
Right. I mean, I don't want to get away from it. Like, honest to goodness, that's a conversation that needs to be had constantly, because we get a lot of the foolishness that we kind of started seeing in the past couple of days. It's not gone away for a long time. It's not gone away for a long time. We've had a lot of bickering. We had a lot of fighting. We had a lot of, back and forth and so forth. And you can call that fandom. Some people do. But we saw it. We know that there were people, there were certain entities that were, profiting off of this foolishness that we see. And, we try not to do it. Well, I say we try not to. We do. I end up mudslinging myself. I end up, telling people how I feel and let them know that I see what they do and, that it's not a good deal. And I let them know. I don't pussyfoot around and stuff like that. And that was also one of the things that old school Mr. Derek Fournier, he did as well. He didn't pussyfoot. He didn't go around. He didn't mince words. He didn't go around the subject. He addressed everything. And the same to you. You pretty much carried that as well. And there's no better time to address or have you guys on to address some of the stuff that we're seeing now, especially this recent hoopla surrounding where the BUCS are now. Like today, of course, we got the whole real fans versus fake fans because we have a huge acquisition right now with Tom Brady, and we have some other things that are going on with the BUCS. The first thing that kills me, the first thing I want to respond to whenever somebody says, hey, if you're a fake fan, I don't want to see you at Raymond James. I'm like, you know what? Do me a favor. Who is your season ticket rep? Like, who the hell? Like, you probably don't go to, like, most of these guys don't go to games. They wouldn't go to a game unless the ticket was free, and some of them wouldn't do that then. But, you've got a lot of people who are calling out other fans for coming in because we have what is a supposed winner. You guys have seen this before. You guys have been fans longer than I've before. You've also been in Tampa longer than I've before, so you got to see it firsthand and at a different level. Like how do you guys deal with that just from a fan standpoint? And, and you can give some insight. I know we got a lot of podcasters who are listening. Again, we got a lot of people who want to emulate you guys' success. What do you guys think, and what do you guys think about that subject, and how do you go on about your business dealing with that kind of stuff?
I want to respond first, but then I want to toss it to Derek because it doesn't bother me at all. I was going to games when the stadium was full. Derek's been going to games forever. It was fun. It was a fun environment. Yeah. When the team was winning, when we had when Coach Dungy was there and it led into Coach Gruden. I mean, it was the waiting list was how many deep for season tickets. But I don't know when being a BUCS fan became a dick measuring contest of who is a bigger fan because I do this and I do this. So I think it's at a very exciting time to be a Buccaneers fan. I think welcome the new people who are going to be coming on because obviously there's going to be a huge focus on the team this season, and hopefully the stadium will be full, and hopefully it will be way more difficult for New Orleans Saints fans to get tickets and any other opposing team that comes in. And it creates that home field advantage. And obviously the team has not been successful at home for X amount of years. So I'm excited about it. I'm thinking positively about it. And it doesn't matter to me if someone has become a fan over the last 2 months. And I just like the fact that hopefully folks will be wearing BUCS jerseys and BUCS colors at Raymond James this year.
It's interesting. I think sometimes we get myopic and think that this only impacts, sports. I remember because I'm old when Depeche Mode Violator came out. I think it was in high school, and people were like, well, I was a Depeche Mode fan before Violator, and that was the badge of honor. And people like, oh, you like Metallica, but do you remember this? Do you know that Dave Mustaine almost was a singer? And there's always the thing that says, I'm more authentic. I am more hardcore. That's the essence of being a fan in some ways, is that fanaticism. I think it's natural, and to ignore it is just like it's just going to happen. It's like breathing, right? It's going to happen. I think the best thing we can do is, as a community of fans, realize that there's better stuff to fuck with than that. And so for 100 and something tailgates, what we did with the What the Buck tailgate was we brought fans of both teams together, and we celebrated and we helped the community and we had a good time. And whether we won or we lost, we made friends across the country. And then we went and watched the game, and yeah, hell, for that 100 and something games, we might have been the curse, to be honest, in some ways, because shit, we didn't have a whole lot of success during that period of time. But at the end of the day, like you said, like I've been in full stadiums, I've been in empty stadiums. I've never tried to go in a stadium I couldn't get into, right? Whether it's in New England where I've been, or New Orleans where I've been, or wherever, right? So I welcome new fans in general if they're good fans, and we have a simple rule: don't be an ass. Right? And you can be a fun, cheeky ass like we are, and like a bunch of our Bucks fans friends on Twitter are. Like, that's different. You can't be a mean-spirited dick. That's just not useful, right? That just makes you a mean-spirited dick who happens to wear a Bucks jersey. So in my mind, like you said, Chris, this is exciting. Now, you guys know I thought they should have re-signed Jameis. I'm a Jameis guy. We're not going to get into that on this podcast, I'm sure, because that's been beaten to death, right? But you'd be foolish not to be excited that the Bucks appear to be signing, because it hasn't happened yet, the greatest of all time. And if he's able to stay alive behind that line, which he could because he has a quick release, he diagnoses fast. It's not going to be as simple as 40x-year-old quarterback gets killed in the backfield. He's not Byron Leftwich. But that's an exciting time, and that is going to draw other free agents. That is going to draw ticket sales. You saw what happened on Ticketmaster. And full stadiums are fun, man. They just are. I remember Washington going into the playoff overtime, Edel Shepard dropping the pass. Right? I remember the Mike Allstott 2-point conversion. I remember holding people on both shoulders, one of whom I'm friends with since he was 5, one of whom I don't know who the hell they were. Right? That's the essence of live sports. And everyone says, well, live sports is dying. You can watch it at home in front of your big high-def TV and buy cheaper beer. And you know what you don't do? You don't get that sense of community. The very sense of community, ironically, that we're missing right now as we self-quarantine and we're all going to start jonesing for is the thing that sports does. It brings us together from different walks of life to celebrate a common object. And so, damn it, Tom Brady, come on down, right? Now, if that motherfucker brings Antonio Brown, I'm going to have a problem.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue for a lot of people.
But if Tom comes down here and brings the wife and we get a little, Ted 3 gets made down here, I'll be super happy about it.
Ted 3. Yeah. That's a fun, again, I'm a season ticket holder. You've been a season ticket holder. And, we've been to the stadium. We know what it's like to have a home game and be completely swamped with black jerseys, with red and black jerseys that aren't Bucks, with everything that's not Bucks. It's never been fun to go to the stadium and feel like the underdog because you're playing at your home stadium. Like, that's never good for anybody. I went to –
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was. This is something that I experienced, and Derek has had season tickets longer than I did, and sitting in the old Sombrero, and this is back when it was the NFC Central and Green Bay Packer fans and Bears fans and all that. We're dominant, and you sat there and you lost, but there was glimpses of this team is improving, this team is showing me something, and then we move into the new stadium, and then all the momentum starts to kick in. We win home games. And that to me, and I wasn't there since 76, but that to me made sitting in there when we were outnumbered by Packers fans and Bears fans. And I sat there and I stayed at the end of the game. I'm like, man, this really sucked. We lost, but oh, well, no problem. We're going to move forward. I appreciated the winning and I appreciated the Super Bowl win way more because I was there during the times when they were down. So if there are maybe fans who are critical of, oh, now we got to deal with all these new fans coming in. But if you've been there and you've seen the losses, if they start to win, will that not be more special for you, no matter who's sitting next to you, if that person has been a season ticket holder for 15 years or they just started? It's a full stadium. You're going to have fun. Like Derek said, you're going to meet people that you maybe have never met before, maybe develop a friendship. I think it's more special for those who have been there for a while, and if they do start winning football games, just enjoy it.
Yeah, their presence doesn't diminish your joy unless you actively let that be true, right? It's like the same concept of, to raise yourself up, you don't have to push others down. The reality is if you've gone through that pain, then it is sweet. I remember every one of the playoff victories up through the Super Bowl. I remember all that joy. Hell, it's been the only thing that's kept most Buck fans alive as sports fans since that day. You know, so I think it'll be very interesting. I saw someone, I forgot who it was, and I'm not calling anyone out as a dick on the thing because I can't remember who they were on Twitter, but saying, oh, we're going to have more Beckys and such and so in the stadium. Hey, listen, I want the stadium full of all sorts of people. Everybody, right? Because you know what? If it's full and there are more Bucks fans than not, as long as they're not the Bucks fans that sometimes I end up being around now, right? And this is going to be super unpopular, but who gives a shit, right? With the 38,000 or 40,000 that are in there now, you still got 10,000 that are booing our own team. And me, and this is only my preference, I'm not projecting this on anyone else. Y'all be the fans y'all want to be. I don't boo my team during the game. I'll go back afterwards and chop it up afterwards on a podcast or on a website or whatever. But during the game, I'm there to try and get them to win. I'm sure as hell not actively going to boo. You have a right to. You paid your ticket. You can do what you want to do within reason, right? But what I like is when people are cheering and it's loud and the opposing offense can't get the playoff, they got to go to a silent count, and you're getting those fan inspiration moments where you're getting people to jump offside. That's just freaking powerful. And I don't care if you know shit about football. I don't care if you've been a Bucks fan for 10 minutes. You can do that.
Right. That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. You've done it. I've done it. We've sat in the rain, had a 3-hour layover, basically a layover, like a 3-hour wait, or it felt like a 3-hour wait to watch our team come back on the field and give it all they have for the last 3 minutes of the game, down by 6 or whatever the case may be. Like, nobody would give a damn if you stay. Basically, you're like brothers in arms. You all went through that whole experience together. If you stayed as a fan, it doesn't matter if they just came on. It wouldn't matter if they, if they got a favorite player that they're staying up with their favorite player. That feeling of just being around that many people who are rooting and going for the same exact goal and want the same thing, that's always been powerful. That's always been a good deal for me. That's
shit. We've done that in preseason games.
Yeah.
It's like, why? But we're here.
Right. Now, the big reason why we got Tom Brady, basically we got all of our acquisitions and keeping our defensive line and all that stuff, we feel like we're running out of time. We got a head coach who's a bit older. We've got a GM who y'all feel like should probably be, his seat should be pretty damn hot. But however, bringing in Tom Brady and bringing in these favorite players back, apparently he's safe. But once again, for what feels like the 6th year straight, we're basically in a win now mode. Like, we basically have a 2-year window to pull it off, to make it to the playoffs, to go from nothing to absolute everything. Like, how do you guys see that playing out right now? That's a big, big move to go and get the greatest player of all time. Many people see him as such. How does that go? Like, how do we ascend and excel? At this point, are we exceeding expectations if the Bucks make it to the playoffs and then to the Super Bowl? Like, if anything, is it Super Bowl or bust, like year one?
I think if you make when you make this move, assuming that it goes through, and maybe I'm just the cynic who, until I see ink on paper, I don't believe shit.
Yeah, it's not official.
Yeah. And I get it. It seems all but done, but I want to have it all done before I get overly involved in it or invested.
Well, we did go to bed. We went to bed with Mariucci, and we woke up with Gruden. Dude, we went to bed with Chip Kelly, and
dude, we've done this before.
We've been there.
We've seen this movie before, and those are the two that I exactly was thinking about when this was going down. But irregardless, in deference to the Reverend Jackson, who continues to use that non-word, is it Super Bowl or bust? It is every year. I mean, this is not for long league, right? So that's what it was last year. But the bust is not really a bust. People like binaries because they're simple for you to get your head around, right? The reality is every year, every team needs to make it to the Super Bowl. Now, do we think that we have the weapons? Do we think that this team has the pieces and parts? Do we think that the team has the leadership to do that? Well, a lot of us thought they could compete last year. And in fact, that team did compete, even with the known deficiencies and with the injuries and with the challenges that they faced, they still competed, right? So if you believe that the quarterback is a problem because of turnovers or whatever the case may be, accuracy, a bunch of other things, and not argue one side or the other, and it's not arguable, in my opinion, that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I know there are people that will say probably Montana, and then there's one clown that'll say Marino, and then we'll talk about rings. But you put Tom Brady in there, then yeah, I think your chances have to go up. Now, do I think that it's a long-term play? No, just because of numbers. Because whether it's 2 years or 4 years, the guy's in freakish health. maybe you get a longer run than that. But 4 years at 30 a year, that's a non-trivial cap number, right? I think that this is a boom or bust kind of 2-year window to go after, because you've got young guys that are under contract. You're repatriating the defense. They're going to have to do something around the line. The big mystery to me is, who is the heir apparent that learns under Tom Brady? Because I don't think that heir apparent can be another $100 million guy, as much as that would warm the cockles of my heart, as I'd watch the entire Twitterverse spin off its axis if they re-sign Jameis and Tom Brady. I don't know how that math would work, but it would be hilarious just to watch. But could the Bucs pull off something where they could get one of those draft prospects that they really like on a rookie contract and have that person build underneath them? And then this becomes a long-term play. This doesn't become a mortgage to the future to make a run for the current. But I'll tell you, with Mike Evans and Godwin and O.J. Howard and Cam Brate, he's got a lot of damn weapons. And this is a guy that's pretty much had to throw to Wes Welker or a clone alone for about 3 years and done pretty damn well with it.
Yeah, I've used the win now term, and I think I used it more the fact when you hire Bruce Arians, which, he's not going to coach for 10 years. I mean, we know that, right? It was let's quickly fix this team. I think it was a move, and I've been very vocal on this. I think it was a move, the only move that Jason Light had to save his job, because I think he was going out with Dirk if they didn't bring in BA. I think every team in the NFL is in win now mode. I think it's just different now with the way that contracts work, is that if you're going out and you're drafting a rookie quarterback, you've got a window that you need to win before that quarterback gets to his second contract. This is exactly, and I've taken heat for this, and I will continue to defend it, and this is not saying anything negative about Jameis, but this team over the last X amount of years was constructed in order to make Jameis Winston a successful quarterback. I feel that the transition from Lovie Smith to Dirk Cutter was to keep continuity in the offense and to ensure that Jameis didn't go to a new coach and have to learn a new system. I truly believe that the drafting of maybe not going with the big heavies and maybe ignoring the defense and loading up on weapons was a way to try and make your quarterback successful. I 100% believe that the hiring of Bruce Arians was to, one, save Jason Light's job, and two, to bring in a guru to save Jameis Winston to ensure that he would be successful and have a second contract with the team. It didn't work out. Yeah. Now when you bring in the GOAT and you bring in a guy who has 2-3 years left. I mean, Drew Brees has 2-3 years left in the league. Well, Saints have been in win now mode for how long? But they're winning. They're winning every year, 12, 13 games every year. I do think that it just sets up when I looked at, okay, look, I would have been, if they bring Jameis back and he improves in the second year under Bruce Arians, that's fantastic. All I want is the team to win football games. I don't care how they do it. Just win football games. And I step back and I look at him like, well, if I look at it this way and I say, if Drew Brees was on the BUCS, can I say, if everyone remains healthy, that they're a playoff contender? No doubt. I say yes. And there were a handful of quarterbacks that I could say that with. And then there are others I'm like, maybe. I feel positive about this, but like Derek said, I think this is your window. Bruce is here, and for a couple of years, I don't know what the plan is to transition to another coach after that. I think the defense is set up to start being successful. I think they're going to continue to build off that, but I think they need the heir apparent. I think they're going to address it this year. It might not be in the first 2 rounds, but I think it's going to happen. I think they should have been drafting a quarterback every freaking year. I'm sorry. That's just, I want the big nasties and then grab a quarterback at some point, because you never know what you could get. I'd rather have that than a special teams player that is probably going to be on the practice squad and then not be on the roster. But yeah, I'm excited about this. This is, to me, it's setting up perfectly for win now, right?
Right. Now, I mean, can you see any negatives to it? I mean, going through social media, of course, it's going to be a cesspool of all kinds of tomfoolery. Do you see any negatives with it? Any negatives whatsoever with having someone who, again, we look at the age. Everybody always want to talk about the age. Everybody always want. I mean, they got a lot of people who want to talk about. A lot of people want to talk about the fit and the scheme. That seems like a coaching issue more than anything to me. I mean, any negatives to signing Tom Brady at this stage?
this is the one time, and if I'm the data analytics guy and I use that and I watch the film and all that, I'm just throwing all that shit out the window at this point because it's Tom Brady. I'm sorry. And I just expect it that it's going to be better. I will say the negative could be a suspect offensive line. I think they're not as bad as what sometimes people say is at that age taking too many hits. We saw what happened with Drew Brees. They don't have Teddy Bridgewater here to go 5-0 in Tampa. We don't know at this point, right? So the negative would be if your quarterback takes hits at an older age, but I think he's good enough to get the ball out of his hand and not take that many hits, regardless of the offensive line. I think they're going to continue to improve there. I think they did last year. That would be the only knock because, well, you brought in this guy, now he's hurt. So now what do we have behind him? Now we're not going to win games.
I think the only question you have is if you believed you had a quarterback who could be generational in Jameis Winston, and I don't think that was cemented. I think that Jameis sadly did himself a disservice playing through injuries. I think when he was injured, he should have just sat because I think that we'd be having a different conversation. Now, I don't care because while I like Jameis and I'm in the James camp, I'm a BUCS fan first, right? So I want the BUCS to do well. So I'm going to answer the question, but I want to make sure that we understand that's really the big trade-off. If the investment you made in the number one overall could have paid off with a 15-year run or whatever, then yeah, you're mortgaging the future to be more competitive in the present. That said, financially, I'm not a capologist. I'm going to assume we know how to handle that. We typically handle cap money pretty well. Mm-hmm. I agree with Chris that the offensive line got better because they finally let someone else play right guard. It didn't matter. They could have put a goddamn traffic cone there, and they would have gotten better at right guard. I don't think Donovan Smith is as bad as everyone likes to beat on him, but I definitely think there could be some upgrades. Now, a couple of points about Tom Brady. He does get the ball out quick. Jameis was a film junkie. He definitely did diagnose better as he continued to evolve, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not Drew Brees. He's not Peyton Manning with all those years of experience. They've seen everything. They're a coach on the field, right? So I do believe he's going to make the right read and get the ball delivered on time. I also believe that every one of those hits that Jameis took, 25% of them should have been a fucking penalty that he didn't get. Tom Brady's going to get 42% of those as penalties. So we're already going to increase our offensive output by penalty yards, right?
Shit, that's a good point.
We used to bitch about it all the time, but now we're going to be the beneficiary of it. So bring it on, right? Brush him and let him fall. Hey, I'll take a Bill Lambier on it. Let's do it. So if we can get that, and we can, as much as I loved Jameis because I never thought we were entirely out of it. I never saw a player in person that I thought wanted to win more than Jameis Winston. And so I would pay my money to watch him, right? And I can count tons of plays where that was true. It didn't always work out. But I never doubted his want to, his compulsion, what he was going to do. And that's why he plays through the thumb, the meniscus, the everything, right? That being said, in every game, there were at least 2 or 3 plays where you're like, fuck, if you were just accurate, that's 6. Mike Evans was wide open on that play. You didn't see this blitz coming from the weak side. There were plays. Now, I can't tell you that that's not true in every team across the league, irrespective of quarterback, because I don't look at every team. That's the other thing. We're very focused on our team. But I do believe that Tom will will deliver those. Now, the flip side to that is the crazy laser to Chris Godwin in Atlanta, the unbelievable, escapability that leads to a pass to Mike Evans down the field. Tom Brady won't give you those. He just won't. So we're choosing, in some ways, we're choosing to be on football Paxil, right? We're not going to get the highs and the lows. We're going to get real solid middles, right? And maybe that's enough, right? You bring back Shaq Barrett. The defense continues its upward mobility under Todd. They start to really produce, which is fantastic. That's not to say that they were terrible last year. I'm not in that camp, but they certainly did have an upward trajectory. But all of a sudden, you've got someone, he's not a game manager. He's game manager plus for sure, right? I don't know that there's a downside other than that mortgage potentially on the quarterback, and that's a gamble. Like I said, we'll never know the answer to that unless we believe in the multiverse and can go to BUCS Universe 2.
I think Derek,
welcome, geeks.
I think Derek described it exactly. And I'm watching him on camera, so y'all can't, if you're listening to audio, can't see what he did, but he did this roller coaster. And that's how I describe every BUCS game for X amount of years is like, it's a freaking, if I was a thrill ride enthusiast, holy shit, I'd be the biggest BUCS fan. It's great. It's up, down. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe it's just going to be a straight line. And maybe the straight line is going to lead to more wins. Maybe it won't, but man, what are you a thrill park enthusiast? Are you a thrill ride enthusiast, or you just want that straight line quarterback?
I mean, but isn't that straight line quarterback, isn't that a mark of a good quarterback? Like, I don't remember another time where going up and down and being on a roller coaster was a good thing at quarterback. Everybody likes exciting plays. I love exciting plays. In my last 15, 20 years, Jameis Winston is responsible for possibly 10, 15 of my biggest pops at Raymond James Stadium or at home. Like, I've seen plays I love, stuff that I couldn't believe. The scramble against Atlanta, I have a photo. I have a photo of the Atlanta fans that were behind me that were damn near in tears. And I'm laughing my black ass off. Like, I'm like, that's amazing. That's crazy. That scramble in Chicago, crazy. I thought it was dumb as hell when I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, anybody else, they would be pulled out of the game for even trying something that's stupid. But it worked, and he did it. And he's had a whole lot of other plays that were just that. They were amazing plays. But that going up and down, I don't know how you build around that. There's quarterbacks and there's players that you can build with, but having to constantly try to build around a player, that kind of is the issue that I kind of took with James. And I was planning on holding this back for a little bit and catching this at the end of the show or catching this at the podcast here. But that was kind of like the big issue.
Screw that up.
What's up?
I said leave it to us to screw that up.
No, you guys are great. This is exactly the kind of conversation that people need to hear and people have been wanting to hear. This is all fine. But again, that whole thrill ride, I can't name another quarterback that was successful with that kind of a thrill ride in the NFL. That's why you look at a game manager plus, as you stated, Derek, in Tom Brady. That's why I feel like he is here. I don't feel like you needed to go and get a Tom Brady in order to be a better game manager than the former starting quarterback, but that's what we have. And I think that's going to be like the thing. We're going to get another quarterback. I feel like there's going to be another quarterback drafted that can be in the mold of a Tom Brady. Obviously not the talent, of course not going to be the experience, but somebody who can be taught. Someone who can be taught to, stay at an even level. Don't get too high, don't get too low, don't try to do too much and go.
I hate to say it, but with all due respect, if that were as easy as it sounds, every team would have a serviceable journeyman quarterback who is a game manager. Now, we have had plenty of those. We've had all of them. McCown family, I think, has been quarterback for us at one time or another. We've had a Trent Dilfer who won a Super Bowl by handing the ball off and having a good, strong defense, but managing the game from time to time. The reality of a quarterback is they got to be more. That plus means a lot more, and I don't mean it as a depreciation of the position. Tom Brady is smart. When you look at Peyton Manning playing for the Broncos when he was 623 and had no neck left, I was in Denver when I watched him, air quotes, scramble for 6 yards and literally throw the ball a yard and a half in front of him to a running back. And so he didn't have to run anymore. It was still a 4-yard loss. But that's what Peyton did, because Peyton was like, fuck that, I'm not going to get hit. I'm not going to take the hit, right? But he knew that the next snap he could come back and win. And I think that that's one of the differences. Quarterbacks that want to make every play work, and that's where Jameis really was. And he never really got out of it. He was never willing to give that play away, come back and live to fight another day, right? He would take the sack instead of throwing it away or whatever the case may be. The win here, and the thing that Drew Brees typically does a great job of, right? These other quarterbacks, and funny enough, if you go to the other end of the spectrum, right, the Patrick Mahomes of the world, right, he hasn't had that bad run yet. It's still possible, right? He takes a lot of chances, right? This football's like quicksand. Like, replacements is a damn, documentary. So bad stuff begets bad stuff. But as much as I'm excited about Tom Brady being here, I never am going to pretend that it's easy to just go get insert second or third round drafted quarterback and he'll become a good game manager that can win 10 games a year, because every quarterback that comes out in the top 3 rounds, that's what people think.
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you in that aspect. However, that's not really what I'm saying when I'm talking about being a game manager, or, just go get a game manager. Just go get somebody who's coachable enough to not put you out of games, to actually be able to say, okay, you know what you're going to get from either from game to game, series to series. You're like, okay, if something crazy happens, it'll be a surprise. It got to a point with our former starting quarterback. It was like, okay, all right, on the edge of your seat again, thrill ride, edge of your seat. You see a routine of stuff that, it just kind of builds up to like, holy shit, you got away with that, you got away with this. And then it's like, bam, the thing that you thought, that you knew was coming. When I started expecting, bad stuff to come, that is the kind of thrill ride that I'm like, okay, I'm not okay with this thrill ride. Like this is a little bit too much. I need to be able to feel comfortable with somebody. Of course, I've never played quarterback. I know it's a hard game. I know it's a hard position. The thing is, if you're not a reliable quarterback, I've never seen how it work. I mean,
the statement, and again, sorry to jump in, is your show, but the concept of a reliable quarterback in and of itself is a fallacy, in my opinion. It's a reliable quarterback in a system on a team in a period of time, right? It's multidimensional. This is what makes it really hard. And this is why, like I said, I was part of the problem with 140 character mindset, which most of us have devolved into, right? We all think it's easy. And that's how I was for the first 6-7 years of the podcast. Oh, it's simple. No big deal. You just do this, and all of a sudden you're going to be successful. The reality is a quarterback like Jameis can go somewhere else, whether it's Pittsburgh, as Chris has alluded to, or anywhere else. He can go somewhere else and be wildly successful. He could end up washing out and being a backup somewhere and then being wildly successful somewhere else. He could never do another goddamn thing in football, right? We don't know. But I remember watching Kurt Warner play in the Arena League, right? And then come in and the guy's a Hall of Fame quarterback. So it's not as simple as, and I said this for years, you don't just go to Publix and go to the franchise quarterback aisle and pick one. Or go to the game manager plus aisle and pick one. It's a gumbo, right? You can have great ingredients that can go into a gumbo, but it takes a chef and time and talent to cook a real gumbo. And so while it's easy to blame the individual player or the individual coach, it's really harder than that. And so for years when I would make light of the lack of interest and detail and all that, what turns out is that's just fucking wrong. The shit isn't as analytical as we think it is. And this is with all due respect to our analytics people out there, because I love them and I love numbers. Numbers are useful. They are color that provide context.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They don't provide conclusion. And that's a big gap in my opinion. And I know that's going to bristle some people that have got tons and tons of data, right? We've always used analytics because analytics show patterns. Patterns are good, but patterns don't predict the future. They give you a hint towards. It's a probability game. So my point is, Jameis in another system could be fantastic. He could never play again. It could be, I thought Josh could go off and do something. They threw his poor ass into Minnesota, got it damn near killed. He never came back, right? It's not because he can't throw a football. The bitch can spin a football without a doubt. And right now he can. So it's just one of those things. And I know that's not fun. I know because I lived in that world where it's like, well, here's the answer. You just need A plus B plus C, and then you get to D. And we get to rally about it. And I think one of the main reasons why I stepped away is because I just don't believe that anymore. We can talk about it. We can conjecture, and we can have fun, and we can say things we like and we don't like. And, we can certainly see if you're in single high and that the quarterback should be able to notice that and be able to cheat over to one side to go against your man coverage. Like, those are things we can see. And that's what All 22 is so fucking great about. And if you don't have All 22 and you're a fan, listen, start getting a paper job so you have the money for it and get it. If you really love this game, watch the whole fucking game because it's a beautiful ballet. Oh, it's free now.
Free right now.
So
go get Game Pass.
It's a beautiful ballet, and you're missing 60 to 80% of the game if you're not watching it. And so that I know I just took your thing way far afield.
No, you took it exactly where it needed to be because the reason why, again, going back to the intro, yourself, Chris, the reason why you guys are so sought after, different perspectives. Being able to actually get a point across without it devolving into name calling, foolishness, fucking hysteria. So no, I greatly appreciate your perspective. I don't 100% agree with it. However, again, the fact that
there's lots of people that are wrong, so that's fine. No big deal.
Again, the point.
And Chris is sought after because he's pretty. Let's just not pretend.
Well, that's the Peloton, bro. Yeah. I will outwork Cam Newton any fucking day of the week. Hey, go find your team, bro. I'll outwork you.
AJ Styles stunned over there.
And thank you. And what you said, Robert, is I think we speak with passion, but we don't let emotion overcome the words that come out of our mouth. And I think that was just how when we were producing content, I think that's how we produced our content. And I understand the shift towards emotional based content. And it's the, hey, we just lost. This sucks. Now let's get all pissed off. And then it's like, well, we'll come back 2 days later. And that's what I think Derek and I did. I did my show on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Derek was every Wednesday. What did I do during the fucking Sunday to Tuesday? I busted my ass and I watched fucking film and I broke down every fucking play, and I still previewed the next game, and I booked the guest, and I told the guest what the questions were going to be, and it was all laid out, man. It was a fucking formula. But that is what I gravitated to, and whatever works for people, that's fantastic. And I know social media, like you said, Derek, and I know the impact, and I'm interested in looking up the book that you recommended, but this is the type of dialogue that I think that I have missed personally, is that we're just sitting back and talking and having a conversation as passionate fans, and we're not letting the emotion get the best out of us.
No, I mean, between the three of us, and the way I feel like it should be with a lot of conversations, whether it's in Word, 140 characters on Twitter, whatever the case may be, is the fact that you could pay attention to what someone says, take a second, think on it, respond. This instant reaction that a lot of people have grown accustomed to, just being able to reply, as quick as, a second, as soon as they get, whatever they have. I think that does a whole lot of bad. There's nothing really good about it. I mean, everybody likes quick communication, but quick thinking is a completely different deal. And that's this is the culture that we're in right now, and that's perfectly fine. I think there is a place for that, and it's an opportunity to vent, to get your passion out. I just preferred taking a breath and looking at things a little bit closer, and then presenting what I thought was a level-headed approach to how you present your content. And I only bring this up because I was podcasting for this team when they were awful. Derek had podcasted for how many years? I don't know how many wins the team actually had in the 13 years, I believe it was, Derek, that you were doing it.
Yep.
And again, this is early, and he hasn't signed. There's no pen to paper yet. This is a very interesting time for those who produce BUCS content. And when Derek was doing it way before I was doing it, and then when I got into the game, publications weren't doing podcasts. There was no Pewter Report podcast. Rick Stroud didn't have a podcast. No one had a podcast. A couple people. Everyone has a podcast now. But there was the audio craze and the podcast. This is not just for sports, folks. This is happening everywhere. Everyone's got a freaking podcast.
Right.
Every celebrity's got a podcast. They're trying to milk money off celebrities for podcasts. This is, I feel, a very interesting situation, and potentially an opportunity for a shift to go to more what I feel logic-based content, because you may experience wins, and maybe that's a different emotion, right? And you're not pissed off, and you're not screaming, and it's not that roller coaster ride. So I'm very interested to see, Robert, with you jumping on board and with the plethora of audio content and content that's available out there, I'm interested to see where it goes when the team, who I feel is going to be successful, I'm interested to see the shift when that happens.
Derek?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's an evolution. The reference that Chris made, and I dropped the name, there's a book called Antisocial by Andrew Morantz. It has nothing to do with sports podcasting. It's also left-leaning, just to warn you guys. I don't really care if you're right-leaning or left-leaning. You have the right to be wherever you want to be. But it talks about the last election and a couple other things. But it spends a lot of time talking about the impact of social media and how it changed journalism. The gatekeepers of journalism were essentially assassinated by social media. And one of the reasons why it hit me, and this is going to be a little far afield, Robert, so I apologize if you want to cut it in post, feel free to do so. But the ability for anyone to have a platform, and the platform to spread simply based on the connection to adjacent filter bubbles, right? And validity to be simply established by popularity and not by proof has led us to a very interesting place. Right, gatekeepers can be dangerous, right? It feels like censorship, and I get that, and so that's why I started, right? I was incredibly vocal when I started. I thought that the beat reporters were lazy. When I was going to training camp in Orlando, I was one of like 4 people there that was there to cover the team, And the people that were there were probably not writing something for 3 or 4 days. And I was putting out YouTube content after every session. And I'm like, well, goddamn it, I'll take a week and a half off and go do it if I can get in here and see it. Why aren't they working this hard? Why aren't they as passionate? Why don't they care as much? They're getting paid to do this. And I was all pounding my chest and rah, rah, rah. I know more than they do. And so that was me for the first 4 to 6 years, man. I was absolutely part of the problem. I thought I evolved. I think we all evolve, right? And now I look at someone like Stroud, who I've never really had a relationship with. I know him. I think he knows me. And not that I necessarily care one with the other. He's always been okay and nice enough to me. He releases a story and people just eviscerate him. And it turns out he may well be correct because he did his homework. Now, they're not always correct. They have sources, right? I remember coming up with Jenna Lane, right? Jenna Lane doing her videos. Jenna Lane on 1010, then became, the Fan, right? 98.7. She's put in her work. She's on ESPN, right? It all evolves over time, but what it can't be is it can't be just a fucking mob mentality of grr, right? We've got to anchor ourselves back in reality, and social media makes it very easy not to. And so this is my public service announcement. This is one of the reasons why I stepped away. I didn't realize it until I learned more. I was wrong. Right? There were things I think I did help change the game a little bit because I forced people to do more because I was into new technology. And Chris, you upped the game with the technology you used. Hell, I went through Mogulus, Livestream, YouTube, Ustream, every new technology I could. And you kept doing the same thing. You pushed the envelope. We did live remote shows. When we did live remote shows, you know what? People could actually fucking hear what we said. Yeah. Right? It's amazing. And I think that does rise. That rising tide rises all ships. But you have to make sure that your content rises all ships too. You have to put in that work. It can't just, well, it can be. You can do whatever the fuck you want, right? But I think if you're going to make the body journalism better in whatever format you want to be, if you don't want to call yourself a journalist, you got to do the work. You got to watch the film. You got to become informed, and you got to listen to hear, not listen to fucking talk. So sorry for the soapbox.
No, you keep that soapbox. You stay right there. You own that shit. I appreciate your soapbox, but I 100% agree with everything that you said. Like, all of that makes complete sense. And again, 6th time, this is exactly why I asked you guys to be on. This is the kind of speak that people need to hear. A lot of content has been put out there, including myself being a new guy in there. I interacted with you guys when you had your podcast and so forth. I spoke to you guys, whether it was on the podcast or, a couple times in person. Yep. So, again, I'm completely appreciative of this kind of talk, and we've had this kind of talk off air. This is exactly what people, in general, just never mind sports, never mind the BUCS. This is just the kind of conversation that people need to be able to have. And again, you guys supply that, and I'm greatly appreciated. Greatly. So real quick, I want to do one thing though before we get out of here. Right now, as of this moment, 2 things haven't happened. Tom Brady, the newest acquisition of Crave, craziness all around Tampa and all over the Massachusetts area. They're pissed about it. Right now, as of 10:30 at night, day 1, he has not come to terms with this contract. He has not signed this contract. Also, our former starting quarterback, who we've mentioned several times in the past hour or so, he has not been signed as well. Is there going to be a home? Is there a possibility for Jameis Winston to become a starter somewhere else? Do you see like a clear path for him to become a starter anywhere? And if even not a starter, just anywhere in the league, do you see where he can end up?
I don't believe there is a narrative or something that has existed amongst local media. I can't speak for national media because I honestly, again, some national media, some are clued in, like that Jeff Darlington is clued in with Tom Brady. Great info, right? And he got a whole bunch of shit for it. And, he's like stepping up. I'm like, look, I've tried to tell everybody, but I haven't seen this. The local media has been against Jameis since he's been here. I don't buy into that shit. I'm sorry. Maybe nationally, and maybe there's a 50% of the fan base who didn't like Florida State and didn't like Jameis Winston. I want him to go somewhere and be successful. Now, the problem is, I will say, and I was not a huge fan of the BA hire, 67, 68-year-old BA. I was a fan of it 6 years ago. but it's hopefully going to work out. I was in the camp that I was like, I think they're going to rebuild, so why not just blow it all up and bring in a younger coach? But I do think that he's very vocal, and when I say he, I mean BA, pronouns pal. Bruce is very vocal when it comes to players that are potentially not going to be on the team the following season. I think the entire organization did it to Gerald McCoy. I think they repeated themselves when it comes to Jameis Winston, and I think they kind of strung Jameis along, knowing that this whole door number 2 mentality. You gotta look at that and say, look, they're trying to replace me as a quarterback. That's my opinion. Again, felt like they were trying to replace him all the time. And if it wasn't 1A, if it wasn't 1B, if Jameis is 2, then you're going to explore those options. Now, once the Brady thing happened and the dominoes started to fall, and you see Rivers go to Indianapolis, and then you see Bridgewater goes to Carolina, all these dominoes are falling in place. Where was Jameis in that whole discussion? Maybe that's his agent. Maybe that's something that in the background Tampa was discussing with him, and I don't know. I don't know the background of what's working. I do feel that Jameis is going to be a quarterback in the NFL in the upcoming season. I can't tell you it's going to be a starter because I went through every team today, and if the story is true that the Chargers are going to go with Tyrod Taylor and draft a quarterback like I fully expect them to do, Chargers don't seem to be a fit at this point. Gruden's got now Mariota and Carr if he stays. I don't see that being a fit. These were the teams that we were hearing through the media of potential fits for Jameis. I've said since day one, I believe, I think Roethlisberger's only got a couple years left. I think the Steelers are a fantastic organization. I think they are a consistent organization. They've had the same coach for how many years now? I think that makes sense. I don't think Mason Rudolph is the answer, or the Duck, whatever the hell that other guy was, is the answer. If you can take less money and go and say, look, Ben might not even make it through a full season. Ben's got 2 years left, potentially 1-2 years. I understand the cap situation. That's what Pittsburgh has to work out. I think that's a very good fit for Jameis. The only other team that I could say is, well, there's Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville, so there's competition. When the Bears traded for Foles today, that's not an option. New England, I don't know. So the only 3 teams that I can come up with at this point would be Pittsburgh to be behind Ben and be there in case something were to happen, Jacksonville to compete with Gardner Minshew, or New England, which would be freaking crazy. And I don't even know if I would want to deal with that at that point. So that's the only thing I see.
I don't know if you guys watched The Masked Singer, but it's one of my guilty pleasures.
I saw Sarah Palin sing Baby Got Back, and it was the greatest. That's exactly what this country needed when everything was happening.
You need more Palin, Baby Got Back.
Yes.
But Ken Jeong is one of the judges, and he Dr. Ken Jeong, exactly. He stands up and he makes these declarative judgments about who these are, right? And it's just over the top. And I'm going to tell you right now, the setup, because the NFL is rigged, we all know that. Let's just dispense with all the silliness and tomfuckery, as you said earlier, Robert. It's clearly going to be New England. It's going to be an exchange of quarterbacks. And this sets up a New England, Tampa Bay Super Bowl, former New England quarterback versus former Buccaneer quarterback in Tampa Bay for all the marbles.
It's like Vince McMahon just scripted it.
And by the way, I'm going to retell the story that as a small child, I grew up a poor black child. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but that's a jerk reference for anyone who thinks I'm being racist. Fuck you guys.
I was just going to say, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Yeah, see? Exactly. I had one of those vibrating football games, right? From Sears catalog. It always came with the damn Cowboys and the Steelers because they won all the Super Bowls when I was a kid. I was born in Boston. We were Patriots fans as a kid until 76 when the Bucks came in. I had the Patriots and I had the Buccaneers. I think I'm the only kid who ever ordered those 2 teams on that football game. And I guarantee you that is the Super Bowl. Put your money on it right now. I'm not guaranteeing, there's no insurance here, but I think that would be fantastic. Realistically, I think Pittsburgh's the right call, by the way.
You think, okay, Pittsburgh is a call. When you mentioned that, Chris, earlier, I said, that makes complete sense. Like that does make sense. But then I look at the age. I'm like, at that point, Jameis Winston would be considered basically a damn grizzled veteran at 20. Would he be 28 at that point? If
Ben plays the next 2 years.
Yeah, you don't think he'd make it another 2 years? Is he that in bad of shape. I didn't think he was.
I mean, in play this year, and I'm just thinking, you know, I don't know full contract. I looked up the Pittsburgh contract situation. I understand they're over the cap right now, but that doesn't make a difference. The teams figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, this you know at this point. But I'm just trying to think of culturally what would be a good fit for him and get him out of Florida. I just feel like from an organization standpoint, you know, you played for Tampa, and I will admit as a Tampa fan, awful organization. You know, we haven't won many football games for how many years now. It's a good organization. I feel it's good ownership group. I think you've got a solid leader at head coach in Mike Tomlin. Would have loved him here in Tampa if they ever would have let him get away. I just see it as a good fit. Nice, fresh start for the young man. Can do good things up there in the Pennsylvania community, and I think it would be a good opportunity for him. I don't see a starting role right now, but you never know. Never know what could happen. Okay. I didn't see Ryan Tannehill starting in Tennessee this year, and that happened. So
yeah, that was ridiculous.
And now he's getting paid.
And he got paid.
And he got paid big. 4 games, just not losing games. That's all. That's all he really did. Not worth a damn anything else. Before we get out of here, man.
He's the game manager you want, Robert.
Hey,
he's the game manager you want. We should have signed Ryan Tannehill based on the credentials and the criteria you set forth earlier.
Hey, understand.
Game manager plus.
Hey, understand this. Game manager for me is literally the exact same thing as a pass first point guard in basketball. It's exactly what you're supposed to be first and foremost if you're a point guard. You find out how to get the ball to the guys that can make plays for you. That's what you do. You don't need to be a superstar. You just need to be a pass first point guard.
You and I got to wrestle because if your point guard can put up 32 points on 60% from the floor, I don't give a shit if he passes at all. And you'd say that makes him a shooting guard. Yeah, but if he can pass, it's still
exactly what it makes him a shooting guard.
You know what gives you wins and losses in basketball?
Points. Yeah.
Right. So however you get that ball in the bucket is all that matters, right? Yeah. So if I pass it to someone who puts it in, cool. If I put it in, cool. Shaq can only dunk the ball. They all count for 2. Fuck y'all.
Yeah.
It's almost like yards ain't points.
Exactly. Well, you know what? In basketball, points to turnover ratio, you'll be looking at that first and foremost. That's how you become a point guard. That's how you know if you got a good point guard. That's a big deal.
I still think Magic Johnson was a center, so
technically he was a power forward. So yeah.
6'9", baby.
Kareem would argue flexibility is different.
Hey guys, one last question before we get out of here. And again, I want to thank you for your time. We've been out here for just a little bit over an hour. Last question, and again, it's going to end on our former starting quarterback. What went wrong? At some point in the next 2 years or so forth, we're going to end up dealing with another point. I'm sorry, I said point guard. We're going to end up with another. We're going to end up with another young quarterback. I think. Hopefully, it's somebody that came out of the draft, the 2020 draft. We're going to end up with another.
I don't know, man. I think Fitzpatrick is going to play till he's 55, so maybe they'll just bring Fitzpatrick back. What do you think?
Hey, quite possibly, man.
Fitzpatrick and Josh McCown.
Josh McCown, exactly.
55-year-old quarterbacks taking over for Tom Brady.
Excellent.
Oh, that could be the case. But again, I think we're going to end up with another young quarterback. What went wrong with our last franchise quarterback hopeful, and what do you think would be like the next step into not having that happen again? Is that something we can look at and be like, okay, like we completely screwed this up?
To the point that you started with and have reentrantly mentioned, I think we start by dispensing with the notion that there's a plan to get a franchise quarterback, right? That is not a thing. I know people want to make it a thing, right? We thought he was because you draft him first, top 10. You're gonna make the claim, right? I remember our man. Oh Jesus, how did I forget his name? God dang it. Raheem Morris, right? When he said Josh Freeman, we're gonna bring Josh in and he's gonna become our franchise quarterback. You know, it was a predestined place, right? You don't know you have a franchise quarterback until he becomes a franchise quarterback. So all you can do is draft based on, I think, production, right? These guys that go in, oh look, he threw the ball 75 yards from his knees. Great. He's not allowed to throw the ball from his knees, generally speaking. So that's not particularly useful. So you've got to go based on production, and then you've got to make sure that it's basic blocking and tackling. I'm the most boring coach strategist in the world. Give your quarterback the ability to read the field and deliver the ball. You got to give him 5 to 7 seconds. You don't give him 5 to 7 seconds, and you better learn how to fucking run the ball. That's all it is. That's all there is to it. So I don't think we did anything uniquely bad here. We gave him weapons. We have a suspect offensive line. The running game was decent enough, but the suspect offensive line made that tough. Offensive line is getting better, but I don't think there's any magical formula. And I don't think we uniquely fucked it up. I think every team fucks it up. Go ahead. Sorry, Rob.
No, don't be sorry. No, so the one thing I want to clarify, and I think you and I have had the conversation too, again, off camera, off podcast, whatever. When it comes to quarterback, that term, I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Because, and again, I've mentioned this on Twitter. I've mentioned this in every forum I could find. Franchise quarterbacks are never drafted. They've always been developed. They've always just happened. You don't make a franchise quarterbacks. That's always the dream. You're not a franchise quarterback until you're successful in the NFL and continuously successful. I absolutely loathe the term franchise quarterback. I always put it in quotes every time I do it. So I mean, just want to clarify. I do not believe you draft a franchise quarterback. You develop one, and that's always been the case.
If we don't evaluate a quarterback by wins, what's a franchise quarterback? Isn't a franchise quarterback by definition a quarterback who has been on a team that has been successful
for a stretch?
AKA they're winning football games,
exactly.
and they stay on that team, and they're drafting 30th and 31st every year, like the Patriots were doing, and the Seahawks do, and all these other teams.
So that's at least 2 dimensions, right? Which I like, because now we're out of the single dimension, which most people will stop at. 2 dimensions there were wins and time. Right, yeah. And that's really, really useful, right? Because I could make the argument that Trent Dilfer, by that initial dimension, because he won a Super Bowl as a franchise quarterback, we all know that that's not true, right? But you can take another quarterback that, say, gets you 9 to 11 wins a year over 5 years, and you say, well, is that person a franchise quarterback? I think a good argument could be made. There are many people who think Dan Marino is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Never got a ring, so some people discount him entirely, which is thoroughly unfair. I think it comes down to what it is you're looking for out of your quarterback. Generally speaking, when I think about a franchise quarterback, I think about someone that gives our team a competitive advantage as the captain of the offense when we have the ball, right? They're going to lead us to points and not lead us to give away points, generally speaking. So I have a low bar for franchise quarterback. I'm more like you, Robert. I actually want the game manager plus. If you can stumble into someone who's got just freakish ability and has that ability to just be like, listen, fuck you guys. I'm going to bring you guys back from 21 points down. I'm going to throw off my ear. I'm going to stay alive. They're aberrations, just like Magic Johnson being able to be the point guard and play the center at the same time, in the same game, right? Those are exceptions. You can't use those exception cases and say, oh, what I really need is I need 5 LeBron Jameses. No, you don't go get 5 LeBron Jameses. There's a 1 LeBron James. There was 1 Michael Jordan, right? Franchise quarterbacks are hard to find. So what you got to do is I agree with you, tear that fucking term up. What you need to do is figure out how to develop a proficient quarterback, a winning quarterback, a trustable quarterback, right? Drew Brees, listen, I am in wonder with what Drew Brees does, right? With the injuries he's had, the fact that he can continue to play at that level. And like you said, Chris, they've been cap-strapped for, 12 years.
Forever.
And somehow they managed to still be competitive, right? So I think that's what you got to do. Is I think we got to pivot. We got to help people pivot. Right, it's been a convenient term to use forever, but it's a shitty term. Let us put a fork in franchise quarterback because it's dumb, and it's like leprechauns. It's not real.
Exactly.
Leprechauns might be real.
Leprechauns, they were extinct. All right, that's what happened.
I've seen the movie. Wasn't Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun 2?
She was in 1. She was in part 1.
Okay, 1. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And just like Ben Affleck was in
Geely.
Oh shit. No, Jiggly was.
Johnny Depp was in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
I was going with Phantoms or Phantasm.
Phantasm. Oh man, that was awesome.
Robert, you had asked a question earlier about what went wrong with Jameis, and I don't think we need to make it complicated. And I think this was a staff decision, and why Jameis Winston isn't the quarterback this upcoming season, unless more craziness happens and he backs up Tom Brady. But I don't think that's happening. I know that's Derek's giving me the thumbs up.
Dude, the Twitterverse would melt. It would be so much fun to watch that.
I liked your storyline. You the Vince McMahon storyline of him going to New England and New England. Wow, come on, it doesn't get any better than that.
The last time we played against the coach's former team. I mean, it writes itself, dude. It really does. With the exception of the foreign object and a chair coming out of the fucking front row.
Oh God, I don't think I could deal with people if that were happening.
I would lose it.
My Twitter account would officially be retired at that point at BBP Chris. I just think that the staff evaluated and said if there was another guy out there who could give us a better opportunity to win football games and not put us in potentially the situations that they felt that Jameis maybe put them in last year, and that was the decision it came down to. I don't think it was out of question that he could have been back. I think it was, if it's not this guy or this guy, then we're going to bring back Jameis, and they got that guy, which I don't think many people thought could possibly happen because this is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but somehow that happened, and this is where we're at right now. I think if they felt that half of those maybe mistakes, I don't care about how many he threw versus how many were catchable versus I don't care about any of that shit. What the staff evaluated was that if it's this guy or this guy, we're going to go in that direction. If it's not, Jameis is going to be back. We feel we can still be successful and win around him, and they got the guy. And they got the guy that I think they wanted from day one. I think the Glazers wanted to sell tickets. It's smart. They're businessmen. I'll give them shit all day long. I don't think they're smart when it comes to running a sports franchise, but they know how to make money. And I think this is what this decision came down to. And that's the reason why we have a new quarterback.
Well, I'm going to be there to see
I said we. I said we.
You did say we. I was about to
take
make a
that,
mention
Mark
of that.
Cook.
You did say we.
Take that, Mark Cook.
We own the pronouns.
Capital W, capital E. And I'm going to be there to see it. I'm going to be there to see it. I renewed last week, right before this tomfuckery. I'm actually going to coin that phrase. This tomfuckery started.
His name is
happening.
Tom Brady.
Oh,
sorry.
Is it? Yeah, so
it's Tom Brady, damn it.
We might have to coin that one too. But no, I'm going to be there to see it. And you got a lot of other fans who are going to be probably new to the stadium. They're going to be there to see it as well. It's going to be an exciting time. I don't care if you, again, going back to it, I don't care if you're a new fan from this week or last week. It doesn't matter. If you're not cheering to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put up points and stomp a mud hole in the opposing team's ass, then that's it. And again, 10:47. It's damn near 11 o'clock here on the first official day of the 2020 season. We still don't have a signed contract or a signed agreement. We don't have a signed agreement. We can't do a signing because a lot of the players have to do physicals and all this other stuff. However, there's still talks that Tom Brady has not agreed to some of the language in the contract.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's crazier than the fish with titties. This is going to be something that just drags out, isn't it?
Could you imagine the shit that, I mean.
Dude, can you imagine going back to Jameis's agent after this and be like, so Jameis.
Yo, give me $40 million, motherfucker. No more 23, no 30. I want $40 million.
Goodness.
Let me holler at you real quick. Yeah, it's crazy. It still hasn't happened. And, I don't even know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it. I don't think I don't think it's an issue, actually. I don't think it's a problem. However, it's just funny that he's not come to terms with the contract.
So Roy Cummings' tweet just didn't say anything about contract. He just said that he hasn't signed it yet, and it may be because he hasn't passed the physical yet, but the reality is it has not been done. We said that at the very beginning. The ink's not dry on the contract. Chris said something powerful. Robert, you alluded to it, too. The Glazers have shown that when they want something, whether it's rational, irrational, good, bad, indifferent, when they want something, sometimes they find a way to go get the motherfucker, right? They can throw money at something. They can throw situational things at it, right? So I don't believe it's out of their power to make this happen at all. It's plausible entirely. But as a Bucs fan, I guess I'm just used to being sort of a battered fan. And so until shit is done, I don't believe a goddamn thing. I wait till 4 minutes after the game's over to count a win. You're welcome.
That's true.
Johnson, write that down.
I'm writing it down. I'm use that as a B there. Now it's the brown M&Ms. That's what's happening, and those brown M&Ms happen to be Antonio Brown, literally.
Motherfucker.
I'm telling you, that's what's happening. That is what's happening.
Oh my God! Please don't tell me that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that is the deal there. Hey man, again, I want to thank you guys, man. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor and a pleasure. On behalf of all the other Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans, new and old, people who should know who you guys are and basically revere your work, and not just your work, but your common sense and being like decent people as well as being knowledgeable fans. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties earlier. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a whole lot of foolishness on Twitter because of that.
I just check. You're okay.
Nah, it's terrible. But Chris, before we get out here, man, BYOCB.
Yeah, no sports.
No sports. Craft beer.
Well, we're a craft beer comedy podcast. We shoot the shit and have a good time. I think the three of us together enjoyed some laughs where we talked about Depeche Mode and trying to think of the other references that came up this evening. But we just shoot the shit, man. We go to local places, more based out of Orlando. Tactical Brewing is our sponsor. Fantastic place in Orlando. If you like craft beer, go get out there. We just have a good time, man. We're going to continue to put out content. We get face-to-face, and we go out, record in a non-studio environment. We obviously have to make different things happen now. We'll be going virtual, but we've been doing it for almost 5 years now. I was doing it along with the BUCS podcast, and honestly, it was just having more fun, getting together with my friends and drinking and having a good time, and we have a great community. It's fantastic. We're everywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's BYOCB. And I'm at BBP Chris, still doing the sports thing every once in a while. Draft Kinlaw. You don't need to sign Sue. And go Bucks.
No, I greatly agree with you there. Give me Kinlaw all day long. And again, along with Chris, Mr. Chris Fisher, the legend, 76.
I thought you were saying you're 76 years old. I'm like,
I just look
man,
76. I just look 76.
Fucking bullshit!
You just stole. There you go. I gave you my own drop, the Legend Iron Sheik, for your show, Robert.
Oh, look at that.
No,
I appreciate you having me on. It's always fun to hang out with you guys. I've always enjoyed Chris. It's been good to talk a little bit of football. You know, the world's in a crazy place right now. I hope everyone's out there being safe with their friends and family and loved ones. It is a crazy time. Definitely feel more and more like the get off my lawn old man, as I am concerned about what's going on in the world, not just from a medical perspective, but also from a geopolitical and economic perspective. So hopefully you guys are taking care of what matters the most. And we can use things like sports to brighten our spirits and not darken them. And I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of got away from it, because there was too many times where the thing that was supposed to be bringing joy didn't bring joy anymore. And so as I continue to lecture now when I'm on a podcast instead of talk football, apparently, try and find the fun in football again. Try and find the reason we played as kids. Try and find the days when we wore the Sears Roebuck or JCPenney fake-ass helmet with – I had a Ricky Bell jersey. You know, those were fun times, right? And we still get an opportunity to do that, hopefully, if things can blow over. So it was good talking with you guys. I enjoyed it very much. And by the way, Violator was a fantastic CD. I don't give a shit what any Depeche Mode fan says.
Depeche Mode. Was that the fourth reference to Depeche Mode? You know, I don't know that I have any Depeche Mode albums. What does that do to me? Does that shoot me down a little bit? I don't have any Depeche
No,
Mode.
not at all, man. It's about music, man. It's all good.
Derek has always been my my own personal Buccaneers Jesus.
I'm not the fast food Jesus, which is the BYOCB, but that's a great reference. And and after this podcast, you guys can enjoy the silence. Listen, I can do this shit all night. That's a Depeche Mode reference.
I got it.
Holy Hey, on that note, last time, man, thank you guys both. Appreciate you guys for putting up with me. I'm Robert Green. Outside Leverage. You're welcome.